Okay, today we start on item 275 of the chapter 25, Evocations, in which we are dealing now with the questions regarding spirits that who may be evoked. Who can we call?
Okay.
If you have a telephone and we have the potential to use that phone to call these kind of spirits, who can we call? Who should we call? And the answer basically is anyone at all, to the highest or to the lowest. You can evoke anyone. Just be sure that they will respond or not, that you attend to the call or not. And what are we going to see here starting in the item 275? What would be one of those reasons that we may not get a call back, or why they may not answer our call? Again, evocation is simplest, means to request the communication of one specific spirit through a medium. That may be on psychography, psychophony, but we call a specific name, and we ask that specific name to provide a communication.
Okay.
275.
Okay.
Thank you.
275. Among the causes that can interfere with a spirit's manifestation, some are proper to the spirit itself, while others are outside it. Among the former, we should place the occupations or missions in which it is evolved, and from which it cannot leave in order to answer our own desires. In this case, its manifestation is merely postponed. Moreover, there is also its own situation to consider. Although incarnation per se is not an absolute obstacle, it can comprise an impediment on certain occasions, particularly if it has occurred on a less evolved world, or if the spirit itself is little dematerialized. On higher worlds, where the ties that bind the spirit to matter are very fragile, manifestations for the spirit is almost as easy as drawing the errant state, and in every case easier than on worlds where corporeal matter is more compact. Outside causes have mostly to do with the nature of the medium, that of the evoker, the environment where the evocation occurs, and finally, the purpose of the evocation. Some mediums very easily receive communications from their familiar spirit, who may be more evolved or less so, whereas others are capable of serving as intermediaries for all spirits. It all depends on the sympathy or antipathy, the attraction or repulsion that the medium spirit exerts over the one being evoked, who may willingly or very unwillingly use it as its interpreter. Without taking the personal qualities of mediums into account, it also depends on the development of their mediumship. Spirits come more willingly and are easily more precise with mediums who do not offer any material obstacles. Whenever there is equality of moral conditions, then the more capable the mediums are to write or otherwise express themselves, the broader their relationships with the spirit world.
Thanks, all right. So among the causes that can interfere with the spirit's manifestation, there are from two natures, right? From two possibilities. One from the spiritual side, two from our side. So the one that dealing with the spiritual sides will be related to the spirit that we call. Now, we ask if it is possible that the spirit of X make itself present and provide the communication to us. Well, Spirit X may be in some mission, some kind of work that requires his or her full attention that he or she cannot attend at that moment. If it is the wish of that spirit X to eventually provide the communication. Then, as you saw last week, there is the messengers, spirits in that group that will release the message. Or spirit X is busy, cannot come today, but will come and when possible, when come and when he finishes whatever he's doing or she's doing. So as Kardec put it over here, it's merely a postponed manifestation. Another possibility is that the spirit may be incarnate. Is there an absolute contraindication for evocation? Is an absolutely creates an impossibility? No, it's still possible, but it's much more difficult. One have to understand that the physical body of that spirit might be in a state of rest for that spirit to be able to expand that perispirit and allow that body to rest and go somewhere else. We know of cases that has happened, not necessarily through evocation, but it could be done as well as through evocation. It depends on the degree of, then would be more of a moral involvement of the spirit. It would be easier for that spirit to detach from a physical body, partially, okay, and attend an evocation, leaving the body at rest. But of course, we can see over here that it's become a little more complicated, and not all of us, we have the security, we have the comfort, we have the ability to leave the body at rest and attend an evocation. It can happen, but it's a little bit more complicated. And Kardec puts over here, one of the obstacles could be if the spirit itself is little dematerialized. Okay, now the spirit is not materialized. What is materialized is the perispirit, right? The perispirit is more more or less dematerialized. If the perispirit is still very dense, with the characteristic of more unevolved spirit, it becomes more difficult to make that disconnection. But of course, it goes together that if the spirit is more evolved, it will generate a more dematerialized perispirit as well. So it goes more above the spirit, you have a more dematerialized perispirit and a more unevolved, more ignorant spirit. By ignorant, let me just say in terms of knowledge, right? Not evil tendencies. Will be harder for that spirit to leave the physical body because that perispirit is still more dense materialized. All right. So that would be from the spiritual world. From our side over here, then a lot of things may be important here. These three very important things. Other causes have mostly to do with the nature of the medium, that of the evoker, the environment where the evocation occurs, and finally the purpose of the evocation. Now, we pray to God and we ask with all proper rituals, if you have any rituals, that the spirit of X may make itself present and use one of the mediums for manifestation, for communication. Then you have to question here, what for? What do you seek from it? What is the purpose of discovery of me being here, of spirit X being here? Who is evoking? Which medium is available for spirit X to make a communication? What is the quality of the energies in that ambient? Is it propitious for spirit X to show up? In both ways. Is it elevated, purified enough for a more elevated spirit to be able to be in that environment? And also for a more ignorant, a more unevolved spirit to be, is is the energies so low that that it will not benefit that spirit at all. On the contrary, will empower the evil tendencies of that spirit. So it may be blocked for those reasons. What is the quality of the energies in the ambient? Is it high enough for elevated spirits? And it's not too low for low order spirits that will even potentiate their evil tendencies in that environment. You have to be careful with that as well. Um, it says over here, some mediums very easily receive a communication from their familiar spirit, who may be more evolved or less so. Just want to make sure that you read it properly. It says familiar spirit. It doesn't say spiritual guide. A spiritual guide to be, by definition, always, I dare use the word always here, word always here, will always be more evolved. And not a little bit more evolved, but a lot more evolved. But our familiar spirit is a familiar spirit. It may be a little more evolved than us, a little less, a lot less, or just like us. Okay, being a familiar spirit, someone that we have familiarity with, and you can use the example of André Luiz and his mothers and his father and the father's lovers in the spirit in the physical world. They're all familiars, but you can see the degree of separation in moral involvement amongst all of them here, and they are familiar spirits. Okay, so it'll be easier for on the medium to have that approximation of the true petty spirits of a more familiar spirit. May it be more or less evolved, because they have that again, that things in common that allows that to happen easier. And the same medium may have difficulty receiving stranger spirits, which will improve with practice, with training, with education, with studies. And for the spirit, for the mediums, already a little more practice, with a little more education, will be an easier tool to be used by a range of different spirits that it's, let's say, strangers to that medium. Again, the word prejudices, our prejudices. The prejudice of the medium may create incompatibility with the code or the evoked spirit. Let's say in that particular place, there is just one medium available, and that medium's prejudices makes it difficult for that spirit to use that medium as a tool, for any cause of prejudices here. Material obstacles, maybe that je ne sais quoi of that organic disposition that every medium have may create an incompatibility, at least in the beginning, to the evoked spirit. Usually, as we have studied, those organic dispositions are also somewhat malleable, and with study, with education, it can be somewhat modified, and the spirit and the medium become more flexible for a variety of spirits. I think there's all the possibilities. Any questions? All right, continue to 76.
76. We must further consider the ease that arises from habitually communicating with a particular spirit. Over time, the communicating spirit identifies with both the medium spirit and the evoker spirit. Regardless of the issue of sympathy, they establish fluidic ties that make communicating easier. This is why the first manifestation is not always as satisfactory as we may desire, and also why the spirits themselves always ask to be evoked again. A spirit who customarily manifests feels at home. It has become familiar with the audience and the interpreters. It speaks and acts more freely.
Okay. I mean, it's very little to add here. Um, Practice makes perfection, right? I mean, the more we interact with one another, the easier it is the interaction amongst us. We can come here and lead the studies and present the little that I have in my mind. That is because I'm comfortable with the group that I'm talking with. But if I have to do the same talk in a in a different group somewhere in Texas with people that I have met, I want to be as comfortable. It would be a lot more difficult for me to do so. But if I continue with that group 3, 4, 5 times, then I'll become more comfortable with that group as well. So practice makes it a lot better. Um, if a evoker, and here Kardec puts that over time the communicating spirits identifies with both the medium's spirits and the evoker spirits, which lead us to believe that there is these three parts over here together, right? That the evoker plays a role, an important role in that process as well, right? The medium is the tool, the evoker is the one who is calling to use. So both the evoker and the medium and the spirit may use that medium as a tool for communicating. So as an example, if I wish to have received a communication from my mother or from my father who are now in the spiritual world, I'm not a medium, but I asked Renata, can you help me here? I wanted to evoke my mom, and also if she can use you as a medium so I can receive communication from my mother, and I'll say yeah, so I'm willing to participate, right? So the communication is really for me. It's the dialogues. It is my mother and I. Renata's dialogue out of his good heart helping me, but it's basically nothing for him on that, except the opportunity to practice charity and serve as an instrument for that communication. So the evoker, it plays a major role in that tripod, so to say, in that process. It's not only a figure over there. Actually, the medium is much more of a figure than the evoker itself, because in this case that I used, the medium is just being used really as a tool out of its generosity, of its exercise of charity. The more we do it, the more it becomes comfortable. If I abuse Renata and ask Renata to do the same thing every week, it will become a commonplace that he will be able to interact perispirit to perispirit with my mother at easy, just because they have done it commonly. The first time will be hard. The first time will be complicated. And my mom will say, can we do that again? This time I couldn't get everything out. Was a lot of difference between myself and the medium. Can we do like one more time? And the more we do, the more comfortable it will become. So it's just like here that once we are comfortable with the audience, it becomes a lot easier for us to present what we have to present and using the tools that are available to us. Questions, comments?
Hey, just out of curiosity, on work like Chico Emmanuel, Divaldo and Joanna, is there any evocation or happens organically because they work for so long together?
Among this high level of integration of compatibility of working together such a long time, Chico and Emmanuel, Divaldo and Joanna, that it's almost like they're always present. But I do recall cases in Chico Xavier when he says, I would have to ask this, let's say, to André Luiz. And then he would call André Luiz. And somebody's asking something about this here. Can you answer this question? So yes, imagine someone like Chico who had the degree of work with several spirits, let's say André Luiz, Emmanuel, and some others who was quite familiar to him. But it would still be an evocation, but at a much more commonplace, so to say, than let's say an evocation, let's say when Kardec was writing Heaven and Hell, we would evoke the spirit of such and such that was a suffering spirit, or evoke another spirit of a higher level. That would be something not so familiar, so to say, right? Between Chico and Emmanuel, it is still an evocation, but it's such a commonplace. Then, and the evoker and the meter is the same person. It's also right.
Thank you.
But by definition, it's still an evocation. It's an incarnate calling for the presence of a spirit for communication. By the simple definition, it's still an evocation. But my feeling is almost like Chico's house is Emmanuel's house, and they are there 24/7, seeing each other and feeling the presence. And the same thing I would expect to be of Joanna de Angelis and Evaldo. Not to say that they have their work to do, they have that business to do in the spiritual world as well, the same way that Chico had his work to do, and the same way that Evaldo has his works to do. But they will integrate with one another in a much more easier way that doesn't seems to be an evocation, but by definition, it is an evocation.
Thanks.
Okay, any more? 277.
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
Okay, 277. In sum, what we have just explained means that the ability to evoke any and every spirit does not imply that a particular spirit is obligated to be at our disposal. It may answer us on one occasion, but not on another. It may work with a particular medium or evoker who pleases it, but not with another. It can say what it wants without being coerced to say what it does not want to say. It can withdraw at any time, and finally for reasons depending on its own will or of another. After having been cooperative for some time, it could suddenly cease to appear anymore. For these reasons, whenever we want to evoke a new spirit, we must ask our protector guide if the evocation is possible. If it is not, the guide usually states its reasons for the hindrance, and then it would be futile to insist.
Okay, I think that in sum over here, basically, Kardec's telling us that we cannot kind of sign a contract with spirit and make a spirit sign a contract to attend to our calls when we wish to communicate with them. That they are not bound by any kind of force to be at our disposition when we call to them. A spirit may work with a group for some time and then disappear and say, what happened? Did you do something wrong? I don't know, maybe we did. Let's review what we are doing over here. See if you find any reason from our side that make that spirit no longer be with us. If you do a diligent work, you may find a reason. If you do not find a reason, then it's something on that side. The spirit just begin a different mission, just was called to provide some work in a different plane of existence, and the spirit is in the process of reincarnating. Only it's attaching to a new life, a new physical body in process of reincarnating, many reasons. But the idea when working with evocations, when we will call for a particular name to make sure that we have the assistance of benevolent spirits will guide us in that process. So just plain ask the director of this house, we would like to evoke once again the spirit such and such. And you receive an answer through a meeting, of course. No, such and such not available. And not be able to be here anymore. And very often you're given a reason, mostly from their side. It's from our side, it's our duty to do our homework and find out if have we dropped the ball somewhere and that spirit can no longer be with us. Have we lowered the quality of the energies and that spirit cannot lower themselves that much. If it is from that side, they will let us know. They're not going to let us questioning if it is from their side. If it is from our side, we better do the homework and figure out why. But the most important here is that you can make them sign a contract. $278.
Okay.
Elmo, just as an example, in the book 2000 years ago, in the beginning, the first, before the first chapter, the publisher writes about the process of writing and includes some of Emmanuel's own comments. And it tells how Emmanuel came to some meetings telling the group where Chico Xavier was also part of, that he wanted to write his story or tell his story as Publius Lentulus. And, you know, he prepares the group. He says, I hope with Jesus's, let's say, authorization, I can come and start telling the story. And then the next year, the same year, he comes back and saying, I think we'll be able to do it, and I will let you know very soon. So they together, you know, Emmanuel and Chico Xavier, they write the book from October 24, 1938 until February 9, 1939. So it's just this amount of months was enough for the book to be written by, dictated by Emmanuel to Chico Xavier. And he says here, it will depend on how Chico Xavier's availability, my availability, you know, and we will do as much as we can to finish the book. And it was finished from my perspective very quickly.
Very
From
quickly.
October to February is not that long. So he came beforehand, like a few times, preparing the group what his desire was, you know. So as you were saying, like the relationship is there or was there in this case. I just wanted to share, since we are reading the book and we started with this letter here in our book club.
Yeah, that's very, if I recall correct, Chico had that psychography, but he was writing as almost of us as he was there, seeing all the scenes happening right in front of his eyes, correct?
I would
It's
have.
almost as if he was taken back to that time.
It doesn't say exactly how Chico was.
Yeah, but it doesn't say in the book. But yes,
No.
but that's the all the Emmanuel romances. Chico was taken there, and he was reliving because he was. It said that he was Livia, right? At this book, so
Chico
he was.
Livia?
Yeah. So they.
Yeah.
No,
No,
it
it
doesn't.
doesn't say that.
You're never going to see anywhere. But it is said that Chico was Livia.
Because we were wondering, now that we know that Livia was a superior spirit comparing to Publius, we were wondering where would she be, or who was her, you know, who was she afterwards? Okay,
but it is said that Chico was taken to he was watching as not even as a movie, as being part of the story.
So
while he was writing.
And did Chico write all the books like as fast like this one?
I think so.
Usually very fast, like in a matter of months.
I think so. I think he,
so.
you know, he was all the books he was writing very fast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Paul Stephen, that it's a book that 600 pages. It took him a little more, but
yeah, it's 429 pages. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a very good example, because what we see here is that even in that so well-established relationship, reincarnations after reincarnations, there are no guarantees, no? And when we say, oh, that's our plan, we would like to do this, we need to get permission from that, we got to see how Chico is doing, got to see how am I doing, and there is many variables that everything has to fall into place for the project to come true, right? There is absolutely no guarantees. I'm not signing a contract saying I'm going to deliver this in whatever time. We plan to do it. It may or may not happen. Of course, you know, in the case of Emmanuel and Chico, the likelihood of it happens is much greater than not happen. But for an average medium, it's important with that, have that humbleness, you know, that say that I'm a tool at the hand of that spirit who wish to write. And if the spirit wish to write, I'll do my best to be the best possible tool available for him or for her, and see what happens. There are absolutely no guarantees.
Was this the first book that Chico wrote from Emmanuel? No.
No, I don't think so. It was the first book on the historical event, but I don't think it was the first book that he wrote with Emmanuel.
I think
it's definitely the first historical, but I don't think it's the first
historical. Book. No, I don't think so. I think that either the Consoler or
the previous book, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says here, the publisher wrote the letter to be part of the book in March 2nd, 1939. So that's when the book was basically published, at the beginning of 1939. Yeah, 19.
Yeah, I'm not good with dates, but I don't think it's the first book of Emmanuel, but I'm sure it's the first historical
No.
book.
No, the first book, it's called Emmanuel. And then On the Way to the Light, and then 2,000 years ago.
Ah, okay, there you go.
And then 50 years later, and then the Consoler. Paul and Stephen, Renunciation. It's funny, and Nosular came after all the historical romances, after Umberto de Campos. No, interesting. Never paid attention to this.
What did you say? These were the first ones, or the other ones were the first ones?
No, I just said the order that they were received, Daniela.
Yeah, no, but
I read by the order.
Oh, okay. Including the André Luiz's books.
André Luiz's book was after the whole collection.
You mean
And
after?
2,000 years ago, 50 years later, Paul and Stephen, Renunciation, all of those were written before Nosolar.
Okay. All right. And I've heard that many years ago, I hope not to divert too much the subject, that Emmanuel is reincarnated now.
Well, apparently, when Chico was still alive, they said that he said that Emmanuel reincarnated. Then one day that he said, "I'm happy today because Emmanuel reincarnated." So if this is true, Emmanuel should be now 20 something.
Okay.
All right. 279, 278, right?
Yeah,
278.
okay. Here, an important question arises as to whether or not it is proper to evoke evil spirits. This depends on the purpose and the ascendancy one has over them. It is not improper when evoking them for a serious purpose, but for instructing and helping them improve themselves. On the other hand, it is highly improper when done out of mere curiosity or for entertainment, or if we put ourselves at their disposal by asking them some favor. Good spirits in this case may very well give evil spirits the power to do what has been asked of them, but reserve the right of later severely punishing the audacious persons who dared evoke their aid, considering them more powerful than God. It would be a vain intent to promise to use the aid for a good purpose and to dismiss the spirit servant once and for all after the service has been rendered. Such service, no matter how small, represents a true pact with evil spirits, and they do not easily relinquish their prey.
Okay, so very powerful and important advice here. We already established that we can evoke, that we can seek to interact with any spirit, from the highest to the lowest. So it's obvious that we can evoke evil spirits. Now, should we? Yes and no. It all depends on the intention. What do you wish to accomplish? Are we going to evoke a so-called labeled evil spirit or ignorant spirit or a spirit in practicing harm to others out there? Can we evoke that spirit? Yes, we can. if the intention is to illuminate that spirit a little bit, is try to help that spirit to free him or herself from whatever is guiding that spirit towards causing harm to others or producing what we label as evil. If your intention is to be helpful to that spirit, yes. If the intention is to be helpful for someone who is suffering because of the action of that spirit, it still is a yes, but with the clear understanding that you can only help that person suffering from the action of that spirit when you help that spirit. Now, this is the work of these obsessions, and we help those two individuals. If you seek to help only one, you may even aggravate the situation. You may cause more anger to the one who's already angry for whatever reasons. But when we demonstrate that the intention is to be good and helpful to both, then yes, we can do this work. And it's completely okay with mediumship with Jesus. So if it is for instructing, if it is for helping, if it is to bring some consolation, some understanding, yes, let's do so. Evocation, somebody will ask, in our group we don't do evocations. We receive suffering spirit, but we do not evoke. Is it wrong to do so? Absolutely not. We can evoke. There are groups that work with very specific case of these obsessions, and they will evoke a specific spirit who believed to be causing harm to one specific person or one specific group. It's perfectly okay to do so if we follow those guidelines with those intentions that I just mentioned. Now, if it's what Kardec says over here for mere curiosity or for entertainment, no, now you're playing with fire. You may get burned. That's not how we use mediumship when practicing with Jesus. And specifically when we ask for favor, can we imagine what is it that labeled evil, suffering, unevolved spirit can offer to us? What favor can those spirits provide to us? What help can we get from those spirits? That already reestablishes what kind of spirits are we. If you are going to ask favor for a suffering spirit, for ignorant spirit, for a spirit labeled as someone who's doing evil out there, there's not much that they can do for us besides what they were already doing, right? That's what they do. They are on the evil side of things. If you're gonna ask them for favor, likely it's something on that level or that low level. Now, an evolved spirit will help you for the sake of helping you. An ignorant spirit will help you in exchange for something. So we discussed that last Sunday, I believe. The higher order spirits will practice charity. And when you practice charity, there is no expectation of return whatsoever. At the moment that they expect at least a thank you, is no longer charity. Evil spirits do not practice charity. They bargain and exchange favors. Now, if I ask for a favor from the spirit, they'll perhaps you'll go ahead and do it. And here it says here that the more evolved spirit, for an example, my guardian angel, my protective spirit may step back and say, Elmo, you want to go ahead with your plan and interact with this spirit and ask this spirit for favors, you go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. There's an opportunity for Elmo to learn, perhaps through a lot of suffering, to to know who I should be interacting with. But once they do their favor for me, I owe them. And they will not rest until they get what they expect to get back. So it's the point. Can we? Yes, we can. Just be careful what you wish for. Just be careful who you're interacting with. Just be careful what you're asking and who you're asking. And again, it comes to the point. Where is my guardian angel there? Why do they allow it to do so? I have a free will. I have a need to learn. I have to learn how to use my free will properly. If I make bad choices, I may learn from the consequence from it. Okay?
Elmo,
Yep.
you were mentioning its obsession cases and evocation, but I was always under the impression that on those cases, the obsessor would not be willing to come. In most of the case, benefactors would quote unquote drag them in order to solve the issue. So I wasn't aware that through evocation, you could bring an obsessor in order to willingly solve the issue, work on the issue.
Yeah, both cases is possible. When you evoke, the spirit may come in out of defiance, out of warning. They want to, as we hear, I'm going to warn you. You better stay away from my plans. It's not your business. I know what you're doing. It's not going to work. Or the spirit may be brought in and say, and tells, why did you bring me here? Why did they bring me here? In the heaven and hell, we have both cases. We have cases in the spirit states right then and there that they were brought to that place. In our center, we have very often say spirits who says they were brought here, they dragged me here. And we have cases in the spirit says, I came here to, on my own volition, I want to tell you this. I want to confront you on this, on that thing. I want to warn you. This is my last warning. Next time I will destroy all of you. So with certainty, if the mediumship is practiced with Jesus in a proper environment, the spirit will be there with permission. The spirit will be there because it's allowed to be there. And very often they will think that they are there on that volition. May not be the case. But some spirits may actually show up on their own, but they will communicate. They will be there with the permission of the leadership of the house and the spiritual world. So both cases possible.
And since a place like as you say that works with mediumship according to Jesus, isn't that place out of is it a different vibration level of those people? And how can they find the spirits, the place, since they are not in tune with the kind of vibration, because they're doing obsession, whatever they're doing, evil work, and the place it's doing the opposite. So how do they connect to that to the place in order to perform whatever tasks ahead?
Oh, there is a connection. In the case of self obsession, the person comes to the spirit center and asks specifically, and we do the evocation. Or the person comes to the center. In my case, I go to the center and I have this obsessor who is bothering me, is doing things, but I do not evoke, I do not ask, but the spirits of the house see the opportunity to help that spirit associate with me. and there is a connection of me with that spirit. There is a connection of someone who goes to the center to receive a pass, is unaware of anything else, and leaves behind one of his or her companion. There is lots of associations. And we are surrounded by a multitude of spirits, and we have attractions and repulsions to many spirits. So spirits may come to the center, brought by someone and stay over there, or the spiritual workers may see the opportunity to assist one spirit that doesn't really have anything to do with members or with people of the group, but having there one medium who can be a good tool to assist that spirit, and they will bring that spirit over.
Okay, thank you.
But the most important thing is to be clear over here that in this kind of environment, when the spirit stays, it stays with permission of the house, even if the spirit is not aware of it.
Okay, continue.
We just complete 279, right? I've been lost here.
No, we're gonna do now 279.
Finish 279 and then we finish this topic then.
Okay, okay. Only through moral superiority may one exert ascendancy over less evolved spirits. Perverse spirits recognize the superiority of morally upright men and women. When facing people who try to oppose their fierce energy using only their own willpower, they react against such persons with a kind of brute force and often prove to be the stronger. A certain individual who thus sought to dominate a rebellious spirit through willpower received this response: "Leave me alone with your braggart airs. You are no better than me." What would you say about one thief preaching morality to another? It may seem very surprising that when the name of God is evoked against such spirits, it hardly ever has any effect. St. Louis explains the reason for this in the following response. The name of God only has any influence over imperfect spirits when the one who evokes it can do so with the authority of his or her own virtues. Coming from the mouth of someone who is morally no better than the spirit, it is just an ordinary word like any other. The same applies to sacred objects used to oppose them. The most terrible weapon is inoffensive in hands that are unable or incapable of using it.
What establishes respectability in the spiritual world is all moral qualities, not of physical or intellectual powers, but is the moral qualities. And that's what is irresistible to us in the spiritual world, that there is this hierarchy that the more morally evolved has over the less morally evolved. That's for spirits in general. Through this kind of spirits, we are transparent. Our vices are right out there. Our problems are right out there for them to see. So for us to be preaching what we don't practice, they may throw that in our face. For us to be speaking things and act absolutely the opposite way, they may throw that in our face. The truth is that most of us are pretty much equal. We're not that morally much more elevated than other spirits. So when we're speaking with suffering spirits, you have to be prepared for them to throw those realities in your face, and you have to accept them because they are truth. Again, we are transparent to them. It is our moral ascendancy that gives us a degree of authority to speak with them in the name of Jesus. No one is perfect. We all have our deficiencies. If I would have to wait until I sanctify myself, I'll never be doing the work that I'm doing. I have to be ready to hear what they have to say, the truth about me. It may happen, it could happen, and we have to be prepared. But don't think that it is with intellectual abilities, beautiful big words, explaining things of the technical matters to spirits that will help the spirit. Is the vibration, the quality of our energies in accordance to our moral ascendance that will be able to help spirits. And again, that goes back to evoking in the name of God, which I guess what's very often done at that time. You can evoke in the name of anything and anyone, of God, of Jesus, of Buddha, of Allah. It means nothing if it's that word does not carry with it the energies of love and peace that should be associated with those words. Otherwise, it's just an empty words, and that is not going to have an effect on any spirits. But when we cover, surround that word with all the energies of love, of peace, of moral qualities that those words should evoke and within us, then it does have an effect. It is said that when Jesus spoke and called the name of God, a command of love, everyone would kind of literally surrender to his words right then and there. It was completely irresistible because it's not in the words, but it's in the energy carried in those words. When it hit us, we receive all that energies. And that's what will make an effect. The word by itself, naked of those energies, is just a word. And we finish that part. Next week, we'll continue with the proper manner of speaking to spirits. Any more questions or comments?
I got a quick question. Do the spirits, because in the mediumship meaning, I don't know the percentage, but most of the case, the dialoguers are able to help the spirits that come there. Do the spirits see them as a moral authority?
I really don't know. The dialoguers?
Yes.
I really don't know. I really don't know. Again, we are transparent to them. They see what we are. They see all my fallacies. They see all my bad. They see all the nasty that I have. But perhaps in that environment, surrounded by all that energies, they receive what I have to offer that moment, which genuine and it's good, besides of the nasty person that I am.
Spirits
Yeah.
can see. Spirits can see the other spirits that are at the same level or less evolved than them through. But if we are, a little bit above them, it makes it difficult for them to truly see us.
Just ask because the impression that I always have that they see you as a moral authority. both of you. But that's just a feeling. It's not like, back for any, that's why I asked.
Yeah, I think it's inside our own limitations, our own imperfections. The spirits that come to our center are in a worse state than we are, so they see us, more in a more upstate than they are. But again, it's my impression of how things work, and again, some spirits are very intelligent. They may be able to see through, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, we're a little bit over YouTube, but that's fine. So I will make the final prayer, please.
Yes, of course. To our spiritual benefactors, as we come to the end of our meeting, we give you thanks, allowing us the opportunity of joining today again in the studies of mediumship. We are grateful, dear Father, for the understanding of what has just been given to us, the chapter of evocations, the understanding of the evoker and the medium interaction. May we continue to study and understand the importance of evocations. And as we come to the end, dear Father, may our prayers continue to focus for all that are in need, all that are in need in hospitals and hospices, the homeless, the elderly, and the undeveloped countries. May we keep our hearts and prayers to the war in Europe. May God protect and guide all that are going through so much suffering and pain. We pray, dear Father, for our SGNY, our teachers, Jusara Congo, for Joel Congo, and Elmo Deslandes. For we are so blessed and we thank them. May you keep them safe throughout the week, and may we return again next week to continue our studies. And may we also pray for each and every family member. May God watch over them, bless them, and keep them well. And as we come to the end again, ask to be here again next week and meet again throughout the week with our study groups and all that are there learning and giving all that we can, understanding who we are and why we're here and where we're going. Thank you, dear Lord. We are grateful for all the blessings. And we ask as we leave today, continue throughout the week with the gospel once a week, with family members who are in need, for the blessings, keeping us safe and well, dear Lord. We thank you. And with that in mind, we ask permission to close our meeting tonight. So be it.